Hello everyone, welcome to the weekly outlook in the DeFi Dojo. Today is, what is today? May 25th. We're approaching the end of the month. So you know what that means. Volatility can increase. And so we want to be on the lookout for that. But more importantly, Bitcoin just closed two weekly candles now in a row. Highest weekly closes on record. It actually closed over the R1, which is a pretty significant level. That's where we couldn't get over months ago at the beginning of the year, end of last year. And now we have managed to get ourselves well over it. So that now becomes support. 1067 now should become support. Now, what I want to watch for is if we do retest the support this week, what happens at that level? Do we see a bunch of buyers come in, or do we see sellers continue to drag it lower? That's going to be a pretty significant place when that happens. The reason I want to watch for this is because I'm still seeing heavy divergence, and I know you've been hearing me say this for months now, and I myself am starting to wonder if it even matters, right? Well, the thing is when you're looking at high time frames, divergences can take a very, very long time, especially as an asset matures. And we all know that Bitcoin is maturing. So, like I said for a while now, it is possible for this to go and make 3 hits on that trend line while it also makes 3 points on this one, right? Heading lower. So that is looking like that's what's going to be in the cards. Now, how do we invalidate divergence, right? Everyone's saying, hey, do you think we'll go higher? Are we going to see 200? Are we going to see 300? We will know if it will break that RSI trend line. If we can close a weekly candle over that RSI trend line, then yes, absolutely, that divergence would be invalidated and it can absolutely head higher. So I don't want to tell people like, no, it's definitely not going to go higher than here. I'm not going to do that. I don't know. This is Bitcoin. This is crypto. I can't make calls like that. However, experience has told me that when I start seeing divergences like this, I need to be careful, right? So if that is the case where we are just going to come up here, tap this line again, have another line of divergence, and then head lower, that absolutely could be the top. Technical analysis shows that 95 times out of 100, that is a top. So I have to treat it that way. Now, let's say it continues higher and closes over that trend line, the RSI closes over that trend line, then sure, absolutely, that's invalidated. And we can absolutely head higher to the next level at 173, right? Beyond that, we have a lot of empty space. So I'm just going to take this one level at a time and see how it goes. I'm not going to dump all my cards into this right now. I'm just not going to do that. I got a great majority out of this market from the very bottom. So I personally am happy with what I've done over the last 3 years. Now, if you're just joining the market because you're hearing all the hype about Bitcoin, then just be careful. You know, everybody that is new to crypto will generally join in one place, right? If you're buying your first crypto token ever, guess where you likely bought it, right? You likely bought it here or here, right? That was me. You're buying it when the hype is at its highest point. And so don't be surprised if you buy it and not very soon after it does something like this for 2 years or like this for 2 years. That is the nature of this asset. So be careful. If you want to try to get in and get out, that's all on you. I'm personally hoping for an alt season at some point. If this is going to continue higher, then the chances of an alt season do increase. However, we have a whole new set of variables this cycle. We have ETFs, right? And so there's the question whether or not if the majority of people's investments are going into ETFs, how does that translate into altcoins? How do we convert ETFs into alts? You really don't, and so the altcoin market might suffer because of that. If we go look at the altcoin market, and the way that I do that is I compare total 3, which is all of crypto minus the top 10. I believe I have that correct, and then so that gives us mostly all altcoins, right? And I divide it by Bitcoin to see how those altcoins are performing against Bitcoin. And we're still trending lower. We actually just made our lowest weekly close on this chart. So it still appears to me that altcoins are not a good investment. So I'm not going to be buying altcoins. If, however, we look at total 3, which is just the altcoin market, you can see we're hovering inside what I call the greed FOMO zone once again. Now, that is off of the last cycle's bear market. So I just measured that all-time high to this bear market low, and I get these fancy fib levels. We were here before, so we're not making new highs by any standard. However, we did break the downtrend. The daily is bullish. The weekly is now just starting to turn bullish. And last week, you can see we did use that 8 EMA as support. That would have been considered the retest. Now, this could be, some sort of flag kind of pattern, which is bullish. But what I really want to see is this hold this support and make its move above that line right there. Once we get above that line, then maybe we can be like, okay, there's a really good possibility of an alt season here. We can speculate now because we're bullish, and if that's your style, by all means, speculate. I am more of the lesser risk category. I'm a little older. I'm not 20 years old. If you're 20 years old, you might be able to afford risk like that. I can't. It all depends on where you are and who you are. So that's what I'm waiting for. I'm waiting for that 886 to break, and then, okay, maybe I'll start looking at some altcoins and try to see if we can get one of those crazy 3-month moves on altcoins. That would be great. I hope it comes because we can take advantage of that. Now, another thing that I look at is USDT dominance. This red line you see coming across the screen is the all-time trend line. If I just zoom all the way out here, you will see that it stretches all the way back, all the way back to 2017. And whenever that line gets touched, this moves back up. And what that means is whenever this chart moves up, crypto overall moves down. And whenever this chart moves down, crypto overall moves up. So if this is support, then we would expect this to move up. However, it has broken it before and it was recent. So perhaps it can do it again, right? So another thing I've been waiting for is a weekly candle close below that line, and we still have not received one. If I shoot down to the daily, you can see that we have some daily bullish divergence going on here. So it's another thing that's making me hesitant, right? The RSI is trending up. This is trending down. If we go look at total crypto market cap, which is all of crypto, and we look at the daily, it's doing the opposite thing because they are kind of opposites, right? So this is trending down, that's trending up. We're having a problem at the 786. We did just close the daily above that, but then, I get conflicting bearish engulfing candles here. I don't know what to think. It's pretty wishy-washy. So again, in order to be really confident, I can't grab that arrow, but I would like to see it break that line. Once it breaks that line, there's kind of this thing that happens, greed and FOMO kicks in, things get real crazy, and it's just up only. And so that's why I'm waiting for that line. Will I be buying higher than where we are now if that happens? Absolutely. But I will also feel more confident in doing so. If we go look at equities markets, let's start with the dollar. The dollar tanked last week. It erased 4 weekly candles in one weekly candle last week. That is not a good look. It's already heading lower to open this week. Typically, when we see a weak dollar, we see strong equities. That's like, money moving from stables to the market, right? Not necessarily that exact. When we're talking about the dollar, there's a lot of other factors in consideration here, as other exchanges and currencies around the world. So not something you can say with definite confidence like you can with USDT, but something similar. And I've had this support line down here for quite a while at this first red arrow, and we've yet to touch it. And so perhaps that's where we're finally headed. But as the dollar does fall, equities do have a tendency to move up, at least historically, most of the time. Sometimes when you have bad economies and things are really, really bad in the world, then you'll see everything fall, including the dollar. So it's tough to balance that perspective, especially with tariffs and all these things and Trump tweets and whatever the hell's going on. Like, it's just madness. So at the moment, I don't put too much weight on this. I really only put a lot of weight on this when markets are really bullish and we can see quick moves down on the dollar or quick moves up on the dollar, and that gives us some short-term perspective on what the markets might do. If we look at the S&P 500, we've just been oscillating around this 1.618. This 1.618 is the main 1.618, and I got that by measuring the bear market of 2022. And so you can see we did overshoot it, and then we had the big fall off of the tariff news, and since then we've just been straight up, right? These EMAs are not bullish yet. They're very close. So if price can maintain over them this week and not fall below, then these will cross bullish, and then perhaps we can say, okay, let's go for some new all-time highs. Until then, I'm still just kind of waiting. If I measure the local retracement, which is just our all-time high to our just most recent low, you can see we're in the same position as total crypto market cap, as Bitcoin, as all of these other assets. They're all in the same 786 to 886 zone. So it's kind of like proving time, right? Like, prove it to us. If you're gonna go bullish again, if you're gonna go make new highs, this is the time to do it. Or do we need a retracement first, right? I am under the assumption that because this has been such a huge rally with very little pullbacks, in order to go higher, it makes the most sense to see some type of retracement back down before we can get enough juice to go back up. But the markets can remain irrational longer than you can remain solvent, and so it doesn't have to happen. It is very difficult to be buying here because of how straight up it's been without any pullbacks, and most people are waiting on the sidelines maybe, and so it's just max pain to continue it higher. So it's tough. It's a tough market right now. All of this volatility in the grand scheme of things makes me very cautious in the long term, right? Like, things don't typically get this crazy unless there's something bigger that we don't know about yet. And so I still kind of have that in the back of my mind. Like, I still think that we could very well be looking at a bear market here in the next 6 months to a year. 2026 is where I thought that would happen originally, and it still is kind of potentially on track for that. And that's due to the housing market cycle from 2008. You get 18-year cycles. 2026, that's when it would typically start. Sometimes it starts early, sometimes it starts late. So it's really hard on the timing, but the general cycle remains the same. Typically, we get some sort of bear market when those housing market cycles reset. So I'm still waiting for that to happen. I'm saving as much cash as possible in order to take advantage of that opportunity when it comes. I don't want to blow it on short-term risky stuff, and so that's my main driver for why I'm not being as risk-on as most people kind of want me to be. Okay, so did we look at the NASDAQ? NASDAQ, you can see it did cross bullish. So the NASDAQ's just a bit ahead of the S&P. And that's typically normal in a risk-on growth kind of world. And so over the last several weeks, we've definitely seen that. And so now we'll see if we want to retest this 2365 level. If you remember a month ago, this was the level that we needed to see break. And not only did it break, it opened up over it and left a gap. So it left like a 2% gap on the chart. And so you have these things kind of hovering around. There's a gap here. There's a gap down here still. So you got those things kind of hanging over our head. And typically gaps fill. So we'll see what has to happen in order for that to be fulfilled. We're just hanging out in the middle of two major spots. So it's anyone's guess whether or not we want to come down first and then try to go back up and break that all-time high at the 1.618, or if we want to just continue higher. If we do continue higher without retesting these lows, this becomes an obvious short scalp target for me. Potentially double top, we'll see. So I'm just kind of waiting. It's a waiting week for me because everything's kind of just in the middle. If I start seeing some serious pressure to the downside, I'll scalp some shorts. Excuse me. If I see serious pressure to the upside, I'll probably leave it alone. Because when the short does happen, it's probably going to happen really fast. It'll be a lot easier for me to take advantage of than trying to just grind the grind higher that's slow. So that's just kind of my personality, how I operate. I think that covers everything. ETH Bitcoin, still just hovering in the middle of the EMAs, no real change. Ethereum's just been hovering over the 0.5. I do hold some Ethereum, again, in the hopes that an alt season does come to fulfillment. And as long as we hold 2380 on the weekly, I will hold it. If it does fall, I'd like to buy more again at 2380, and then again if we touch the 8 EMA, which is 2280. So I will buy here and here again to add to my position. But make no mistake, if this week does close below that 0.5, I will abandon the entire thing. Yeah, Bitcoin covered it. And yeah, I think that covers everything. So if anybody has any chart requests or questions, oh, they're already here. I'm hearing we should 40 times Bitcoin to 300K. Yeah, I can't make recommendations like that. That is all you. Let's see. That's a lot of chart requests. Heart, I will do the first two, and if you want to drop the other 4 in the chart request channel, I will get to them when I can, if you don't mind. Let's see, we'll use this chart. AVAX. Crypto. Okay, so there's your measurement from the low to the high. And so because this low is lower than all these and this high is higher than all those, that is the range you want to use until that range is broken. And so here you can see we did close that candle over the 0.5, but then the next two closed below. So it's really kind of trying to work its way to making a move up. And so until you see continued support on top of 2373, then it's risky. It's I don't see any sort of divergence to say it would go up. And if you just take this local retracement, you can see it's having an issue with the 382. So let's turn the magnet on because that needs to be precise to make sure we're right here. So 2443 is the mark to watch. If we want to go long, you want to at least see a daily candle close above that mark. However, notice the last 2 times it tried it, it completely washed it out, and then tried it here and completely washed it out. So this is definitely the resistance. The 382 is a big deal because it can be the sign of a strong trend down. And so if it does ultimately reject that 382 and start heading lower, and you start seeing this trend here, I'd go with probably that one. If you see that trend there break, then that becomes a short target. So another one that's kind of just iffy in the middle. You have another resistance here. You can see it's on right now at 2373. So potentially a scalp if it breaks there on some lower time frames, right? You see some lower time frames break that, then maybe you can scalp it to 2443 and take that little bit. You can see it kind of moves that way in between here. It's a good example of going from a high time frame long-term approach down to a low time frame short-term approach. Let's see, Walrus. Is that a crypto? Appears so. Is it Walrus D? Oh, Walrus USD. Okay. So we're bearish on the daily. It doesn't have a lot of chart history. Where did it reject? Yeah, so it rejected in the take profit zone, which is to be expected here. And now we would have to measure this way to see where it could possibly fall to. Okay, so you got a nice little doji candle there on the 0.5. Could be worth longing back up to the 8 EMA with stops just below that 0.5. That's a nice reversal looking candle. So short term, I can see that moving back up there towards 57 cents, let's call it, from here. So it's not a whole lot. You get about 4 or 5% out of it maybe, but then I wouldn't be holding on to it any longer than that. Why? Because we just crossed bearish. This would be the bearish retest, and then it would potentially fall down lower, break the 0.5. You're likely headed to the golden pocket at the very least. All right, let's look at Sol. Sol. Okay, so we've been watching that trend line. It's still not really, it's still below it. So I guess we'll see if it wants to go back above it. Let's go to the 4 hour. It's retesting now. Let's see, where's the MACD? That's close. So this would be a place that I would typically try to short because it's retesting that trend line from the underside. And then if it closes 1 hour or 4 hour, depending on your risk tolerance over it, then you cut the trade. And then you try the long on top and try to take it up to here. If you're going to short it, then you want to short it down to here. And I'm not giving you any long-term perspectives because I can't call the long-term right now on any sort of altcoin. But I can try to offer short-term trading ideas and how I would operate that. So then I would also take this downtrend. And so even if you do get a close over that trend line, you got to watch out for that 0.5, which is really nearby. So really what you want to see is a close over that 0.5 at 178.20, show some support, and then try to make a move to the golden pocket or 786, take your profits. And then if it passes 183.58, then cool. Then we can go see new highs and come up towards these areas. And again, if you're interested in learning how to do all this, I do one-on-one sessions to teach you how to draw all this and set it all up and find your points and trade more like a robot without emotions, if A, then B sort of things. And that's what's really helped me in my trading. It's just I have preset scenarios, and if they happen, I take the trade. If they don't, I find something else. And even if you win half your trades and lose half your trades, your stop loss is small enough to where your winning trades will take that over. Like, you don't even have to win them all to be profitable. Okay, Jupe. Mic's off, please. Okay, let's go out. Oh, this is like way down there. Okay, let's erase that. And we'll go from here to here. All right, so another one that's showing the 382 or the 236, and so this is what downtrends are made of. So until it can break 60 cents, 0.6030, until it can at least close a candle over that, this could be a sign of a strong downtrend. And what would happen is it would reject that over the next several weeks, or possibly just one, and then it would continue falling to new lows. This is very bearish. The daily's slightly bullish, but even that's showing bearish divergence here. It's not something I would particularly look for to trade long. It's got a kind of a, inverted head and shoulders look, but in low market cap crypto token land, that really doesn't mean anything. They can manipulate that to look that way to get as many buyers in as possible in this area, just to sell it on you. I've seen that a lot, so you can't trust patterns on low volume tokens. Yeah, until it gets over that 60 cent mark, it's kind of bearish. Zora, is this on the way up? Zora, I don't know, it doesn't look great there. Is there more chart history? Should I be using a different platform here? That's all I got, Coinbase MEXC. Okay, so I guess if it's still closing candles over the daily 8 EMA here, that's a good start for a reversal, but really it's very bearish, and so just be careful. You close the daily candle back below that 8 EMA, I wouldn't be involved personally. If it's worth speculating on due to whatever they're building, then maybe you want to try and use that 8 EMA as your stop loss. Looks like it's currently around a penny. Almost 1.11. So, and then if you do start seeing moves higher, don't take it from this high. Start with the lower one to get your more local resistance first. So then start with this one. And then you'll see once again we got a 382 to get through, right? So until it can close a candle over that level that you can see continuously rejects, I would hold off. Like, can we at least get, so it's done it once, twice, So we've had 2 4-hour candles close over that level. So if you see one more, then maybe it's worth trying. Maybe. Sui. All right, weekly. All right, weekly's bullish. So first thing is we'll draw a line from here to here, and then we'll draw this downtrend. So this is typical. You get the downtrend break. We move into the golden pocket. Sellers show up. 786 touches, can't break it. Starts falling lower. But the weekly EMAs are bullish. So if you're a believer in this for the longer term here, if we do get an alt season, this is probably going to be one of the better ones to try to trade, just because it is bullish now and most altcoins are not. So, and your targets would be somewhere up in here where that trend line is meeting any of these fibs. And we want to hold the 0.5 bare minimum, which is $3. So, and then you have your DCA points you can try at the EMA at 340, and then again at 316 if it comes to that. You can move down to the daily and throw on your pivots, see what that looks like. We're still above pivot here. You can see that pivot lines up perfectly with my 0.5. So this is kind of your line in the sand where you can say, hey, as long as we stay over this level, I feel comfortable giving it a shot, right? But if we fall below it, then you probably don't want to be hanging on to it too much longer. And that can save you a lot of downside. So gives you a nice clear level. Golden pocket sell-off is typical, and that is also bearishly divergent. So depending on how much of a move down we get off that divergence, it's anyone's guess, but it's already starting, it appears, and we'll see. Break the 786 at 420, then yeah, it can head higher. So that's your line to go bullish. This is your line to go bearish. And in between, it's up to you to choose those points to dollar cost average if you so wish. XMR. Old token. Okay, it's on another run, but I believe it's still in the same range that it's always been in. It's an ascending triangle at the very least. I remember somebody one time was like, oh, it's a big cup and handle, and then it never materialized. It never shot back up, and now it looks like it is. So you have an obvious level of resistance here, and that's not right. There it is. So that would be the max I would take it to until it proved it could break it. And we're well above the EMAs here on the weekly, so I don't like buying things that far away. If you're a holder, then yeah, it might be a hold until it reaches that line. And let's see if that's the 786, because it sure does look like it. Oh, it's getting through. Okay, so yeah, break that 886 at 428, then yeah, it can continue higher. But once again, because there was no golden pocket sell-off here, it can sell off from there too. So I don't know, when things are that high in the weekly, RSI is jacked. I don't know what XMR is doing with themselves lately, but you're near a point where not many people have had the opportunity to sell it in its entire history, so take that for what it's worth. Cookie, full chart Bybit. Cookie. Higher highs, higher lows. Where's this 1.618? So here's just another great example. Like, look at even on something like Cookie that probably doesn't have a lot of volume. The take profit zone works, right? 1.272 to the 1.618. So now we'll just try it again, right? So now we'll just go from this high to this low, and you can see we're having an issue at the current pivot point, which is also the 618. So I hate how long they make the pivot points. So see you have your R3 there at 332 and your 618 at 3262. So that is the resistance. Should it get into that over that resistance, then it'll likely go see the top of the golden pocket. This is where sellers typically come in. Sometimes it'll shoot to the 786, and then you might get some sort of pullback. That pullback in this scenario happened in that candle. If you measure that downtrend, that's your golden pocket 786, and then it shot through and got higher, right? So perhaps we get something like that again. I don't know. If you take your trend line and just shoot it through here, it can give you somewhat of an idea of like maybe how long it would take to get into that spot, potentially, right? So until we can get over 332, that's resistance. And then your support's down here around 24 to 26 cents. Zora is new, yes. Did I cover that one? I did, right? I hope. Did I not cover the right Zora? You might have just been talking to me as I was going. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I did that one. Yeah, okay. All right. So, Bitcoin, we're looking for 123 to 128 for our next move up. Hopefully we can get there. 1067 is our support. And I hope you all have a great week. If you like this content, please like and subscribe, and come join the Discord. We have a lot of fun. Got some new bots. The Bitcoin DCA strategy is on fire. Made 26% at 3 to 4 times leverage last week, hands-free, and you can use that in the AstroBit marketplace. All right, thank you all very much. I'll see y'all during the week, and good luck. Let's see how far we can take Bitcoin, huh? All right, bye.